A 14-year-old Israeli teenager collapses during a missile alarm in Haifa. Her heart stops, 4 minutes without beating, and on the other side, she sees something she never could have imagined. Jesus appears before her without a smile, with words about forgetfulness, war, and a countdown. He even mentions a date, July 25th, 2025. A warning directed at Israel and also at Trump. Stay until the end. Subscribe and comment, because what Noah witnessed could affect us all. My name is Noah Elvis. I'm 14 years old, and I live in Haifa, in northern Israel, with my 2 mothers, Talia and Miriam. Our house is full of colors. I've been painting since I was very little. What I love most to paint are letters, especially Hebrew letters, big, wide, painted on cardboard, on walls, even on my clothes. I've always felt that each letter held a secret, a vibration, a kind of message waiting to be revealed. I'm not very religious, but I've always had the feeling that there is something more, something behind the curtain of life. Since the missile attack in March 2025 that fell near our neighborhood, I feel different, like I don't quite fit in, disconnected. Every time I hear a sharp sound, whether it's the whistle of a kettle or the screech of a bird, I get dizzy, my heart races, and my hands go cold. And then there are the dreams. The first one left me frozen when I woke up. I saw a huge key stuck in the sky, turning slowly, and with each turn, a thunderclap rumbled. In another dream, there were children lined up on a rooftop. They were talking to something gigantic but invisible. Suddenly, the roof collapsed in complete silence. No screams, just dust. Then, one morning, I woke up crying. I had dreamed of black butterflies dancing on the sand, forming the word shalom, peace, with their wings, and suddenly, they all burned at once. Those images haunted me. I didn't understand anything, but I felt fear. One day, I was walking down the street with my mother, Talia, when I saw a red star crossing the sky. It was slow, bright, and suddenly went out without making a sound. My mother said it was probably a satellite, but I felt something else, like it was a goodbye. 3 days before it happened, I wrote in my notebook, "Someone has signed the end in invisible ink." I didn't know why I wrote that. It just came out without thinking. And then that day came, June 25th, 2025. At 11:34 a.m., the alarm sounded. We were on a school field trip in the center of AFA. We ran to the nearest shelter, an underground parking lot. It was hot. The air was heavy. We stood shoulder to shoulder. I could hear the adults whispering. Some kids were crying. At first, I wasn't afraid. I thought it would be like always. Just wait. That's it. But suddenly, I felt my heart pounding too hard, a pressure in my chest, like someone was squeezing my ribs from the inside. I leaned against the wall, my vision blurred. A whistle began to grow in my ears, so intense it drowned out everything. And then, silence. According to the paramedics, I had a cardiac arrest. 4 minutes and 2 seconds. 4 minutes in which I was no longer here, but at the same time, I was somewhere else. And what I saw was not just a dream, it was another reality, and it didn't leave me the same. I fell into a silence that stared at me. My body faded, and my consciousness stretched like living smoke. I couldn't feel my arms or legs. It was as if I had slipped out of myself, absorbed by a nameless force. I was no longer afraid. I only sensed I was being carried toward something much greater, older than anything I had ever known. Then I was launched into a space made of fabric stretched between dead stars. Those fabrics vibrated like the leather of a cosmic drum, and on each one appeared memories. But they weren't mine. They were memories of other people, of other lives. A woman crying in a wheat field, an old man hugging a letter, a child gazing at an endless sea. Each fabric transmitted a different emotion, fragments of joy, of loss, of pain. And I understood it without understanding it, as if the entire history of humanity was represented there, suspended among extinguished stars. Around me floated creatures, faceless sphinxes, majestic and silent. Their enormous wings emitted sounds, but they weren't ordinary sounds. They seemed like reversed psalms, chanted in an impossible language. I shuddered listening to them. Their crowns were made of blackened paper scraps, remnants of burned peace treaties. They seemed like guardians of a truth no one wanted to accept. Suddenly, a gigantic eye opened in the firmament, made of frozen lightning. Its gaze was so deep that I felt my own soul tremble. Through that eye, I saw an empty throne. But it wasn't a throne for a human body. It had the shape of an impossible equation, a structure that broke logic and time. Without words, it transmitted something unbearable. Who was meant to speak is missing. I was then drawn to a stairway without steps, floating in a silvery void. I walked without feet, and with each step, I felt a foreign memory, a genocide, a promise, a betrayal. At the top, an inverted garden awaited me, its roots hanging toward the sky like suspended blood vessels. The ground was covered in words written in dust, and in the center stood him, Jesus, but not the Jesus of the Gospels. His body was made of cracked glass. Each crack shone like a wound of light. Every time he tried to speak, a fissure spread further. He couldn't pronounce words without breaking, so he used shadows. Those shadows transformed and projected his thoughts inside my mind as living images. He showed me two figures, Donald Trump, standing in a circle of mute clocks. Each clock showed a different number, but none moved. Time was frozen. Trump looked around, confused. Then Netanyahu, sitting in a chair made of dossiers, reading a treaty. But each page disintegrated as he turned it, and he kept reading, as if refusing to see that everything was falling apart. Then a rain of black sand fell. A map of the world appeared. Everything faded under the dust, except two names that remained lit, Israel and Iran. They glowed alone, like two embers on the edge of burning out or igniting the entire world. Then I heard a soundless scream that came from neither heaven nor earth. It said, "You have sold justice for a truce, and forgetfulness returns like an army." Jesus began to completely shatter into pieces of light. Each fragment uttered a different word: memory, silence, detour, rupture. I didn't know if those words were meant for me or for the whole world. Then, in the sky, a number appeared, 5725X, as if carved into the air, and a childlike voice, soft but deep, spoke to me. "The fire does not choose. It returns to where the shadow once let it escape." I felt myself being ripped out of that world. My own scream went ahead of my body. The light closed around me like a sea of glass, and I came back screaming, not knowing whether I had witnessed the end or a beginning. I woke up crying. The tears came before I even realized where I was. There was no pain or panic, just a dense, strangely familiar feeling, like silent mourning. Yet I was breathing, still alive. But a part of me had stayed there, in that inverted world where justice had lost its name. My hand began to move on its own. The nurses thought it was a spasm, but I was writing, Ancient letters engraved in my memory, though I didn't know how to read them, unknown names: Jadarael, Shaibenhem, Luzarot. Seeing them on paper sent a shiver through me, as if I had heard them before I was born. When I was able to speak, I looked into my mother's eyes and said, "They have signed peace with a mirage." She didn't understand. Neither did I, but those words stayed with me, urgent, like a truth someone had entrusted to me. Every night, fragments returned. A broken mirror. Trump, motionless, running without moving forward, trapped in a memory that refused to release him. I heard children's voices singing shalom, but the word was absorbed backwards, as if peace itself was being devoured. I began speaking in my sleep. My mother recorded me. One night I said, "It is not war that will fall upon them. It will be memory." That sentence marked me more deeply than any prayer. I couldn't stay silent. I opened an anonymous account on an international forum. I wrote, "They ignored justice to preserve calm. Now calm itself will be their judge." It was shared. They mocked it, then it spread even more. Some asked if it was a secret code, but it wasn't. It was a pure warning. Direct. One day, I joined a live political stream on TikTok, anonymously, only my voice. They were talking about diplomacy, elections, and I shared my near-death experience. Not with words, but with an image. An hourglass suspended between two flags with the sand falling, but in reverse. Everyone fell silent. I don't want to be a prophet or a victim, but I know what I saw, what I felt. What is coming isn't war. It's something colder, deeper. A crack in memory, a mistake no one dares to name. I am Noah Elvis, and even if no one believes in the visions of a 14-year-old girl, I keep speaking. Because silence is like invisible ink, and someone must relearn how to read before the page disappears. Noah's near-death experience begins like many others. A sudden loss of consciousness, followed by a strange feeling of separating from her body. She perceives herself floating, as if her mind had been released from physical limits. This step seems common, but from there, everything changes drastically and uniquely. Unlike usual accounts, Noah does not go through a tunnel of light, nor is she enveloped in a comforting white glow. There are no guardian angels or kind spiritual beings to calm or guide her. That absence of familiar figures is disturbing, but it opens the door to a completely original scenario. Jesus, who stands at the center of her vision, does not have the bright and kind face many expect. He is made of cracked glass, fragile, nearly broken, as if he reflects the suffering of a broken world. His words do not come from his mouth, but are transmitted in flashes of light that fragment and reassemble. This way of communicating suggests a difficult, scattered, but essential message. The landscapes Noah moves through are also unusual. Inverted hanging gardens where roots hang toward the sky and leaves fall into an invisible abyss. She ascends a stairway without steps, an impossible structure that defies logic and gravity, until she reaches an empty throne shaped like an unsolvable equation, a symbol of the instability of the world. The encounter with two political figures, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, in that celestial scenario is unprecedented. Each is surrounded by contradictory symbols. Trump is trapped in a circle of mute clocks, all marking different times, but none moving. Netanyahu is flipping through a treaty that disintegrates as he turns the pages, a reflection of broken agreements and unfulfilled promises. The prophecy revealed by this vision carries immense weight. It speaks of a betrayed treaty, of a fragile peace cracking apart, and above all, of a forgotten justice. The image of forgetfulness returning like an army is powerful. It illustrates the relentless return of the consequences of our decisions. That mysterious code, V0725X, points to a specific date, a countdown toward a crucial event that could shake the world's balance. Unlike other near-death experiences that deliver messages of peace, love, or forgiveness, Noah's vision is a global warning, a prophetic alarm. It offers no comfort, but an urgent call to awareness. Noah returned from death with an hourglass in her mind. She did not bring visions of angels or comforting light. She brought images of shattered glass, of a false peace, and above all, of justice sold to the highest bidder. Her message is blunt. A date was etched into her memory, July 25th, 2025. On that day, the decisions of Trump, Israel, and Iran could open the door to what Jesus called the return of forgetfulness. This is not an empty threat, but a mirror held up to us, a reflection of our actions and our silences. So, what do you see in that mirror? What do you feel in the face of this prophetic message? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next revelations. Because messages like this only come once, breathing, still alive. But a part of me had stayed there, in that inverted world where justice had lost its name. My hand began to move on its own. The nurses thought it was a spasm, but I was writing, ancient letters engraved in my memory, though I didn't know how to read them. Unknown,